what's up, everyone? Long hair. And first off, I just want to say happy Saturday. I actually had a good time tonight, like watching a movie called Soul. So I actually got to spend a little time watching a movie that I been meaning to watch for a very long time. I and it turn and I was I'm glad I finally got around to it. This movie came out like during the first year of the of COVID lockdown. And I also was surprised to hear that it was actually like released out in theaters this last year in January. So pretty cool, awesome. I'm really glad it got the like theatrical release that it deserved because this movie was fantastic. But instead, I end up like checking out the movie a year later, and it was I very much love this movie. So I think Jamie Foxx did a great job as Joe Gardner, the pianist and the music teacher who aspires to be like a professional like jazz player. And then there's also Tina Fey who plays like a number 22. So basically a soul that he encounters when his soul becomes like separated from his body due to an accident. So it's and I find the movie very endearing. But also like what I also got out of the movie is how wonderfully magical and creative Pixar was at that time. And I don't know at what point they lost their creative spark. I mean, like, granted, like they had Encanto and then they have Moana, but yeah, and then of course Toy Story. But beyond that, I mean, like the last couple of other movies weren't really all that great, and in fact, like I was just very disappointed in some of them. Wish being one of those. I'm not going to get into that one. The subject here today is going to be on the movie, and basically, like it's rather than just giving you a straight up review, I'm just going to talk about like what worked really well because I thought that this really like because as a grown adult, I mean like I find the movie to be very relatable in so many ways. And what was also great is that it was done in a way that it was allowed to be fantastical. It didn't really have a lot of too many connections to the real world, other than they said it was set in New York. I mean, there are elements that relate to life in New York without hitting you over the head about life's lessons learned in New York. So instead, the movie is focused on the growth path of one Joe Gardner, the played by Jamie Foxx, who again I'm going to say it again, he is such a fantastic actor, and he actually does a great job like portraying like this like befuddled teacher very well. Dreams of like wanting to his dreams, while they like can be considered unattainable or too risky to pursue and have it be like a stable job, but that's that there's also some parts that will also have some part to play in the movie, like, and it's really cool like how life circumstances will get you to think a lot differently, and that's something that is and it's portrayed so well in a way that's imaginary, and and then rather than beat someone over the head with these life lessons, give them a chance to explore through the journey. And that's essentially like what I believe that like modern day movies are missing these days. They're missing that creative spark. They miss out on the imagination that was there. Instead, it's been suppressed and politicized heavily, and it ultimately becomes unhealthy for not just the creative, but the viewers that they hope to gain, the people who just want to escape from reality and then come back to a fantasy world where everything works out well in the end, in a way that's positive. The main thread of this movie is that Joe Gardner finally gets his chance to to live his life by becoming a professional musician, but that chance gets taken away from him. When he becomes too reckless, celebrating the news, and then he gets himself into an accident where like it's believed that he is dead. But he's not. It's just simply that his soul has been separated from his body, and he is now back on, and he's trying to figure out how to get back, and his soul now is trying to figure out how to get back to his body so he can go on living his life. So along the way, he comes across like Soul 22, and he's been given the task to inspire 22 to find her spark. And she's portrayed wonderfully well, because like what's great about like Tina Fey's portrayal of Soul 22 is not just simply that you hear Tina Fey. You actually are hearing, you actually have the chance to like imagine who 22 might have been on planet Earth, because all these souls that live in what they call the great before. So it's not the great beyond, it's the great before. So basically this is the phase where like when you're out there, like, what are you doing before you pass on to the next world? I mean, are you living your life, or are you not? And it's pretty cool. I mean, like if you take too much time to think about like how everything works logically, that ultimately defeats the purpose of the fantasy that's being portrayed here. And like the fantasy world is just like, it's just that creative imagination that Pixar always had before, from Inside Out to Toy Story to now to eventually Soul. And that's a creative spark that like Pixar ultimately is missing. And really needs to like find their way back to, because this reminded me of like what made Soul great. And forget the fact that like it didn't recoup its like like budget, but it likely made up for it with with Disney Plus streaming. So remember, this was a movie that was made in that came out the first year of COVID. We weren't able to like go out there, and we weren't able to go out there unless we were like delivering food. We couldn't really come into contact with each other, so forget about going to the movies. So basically everyone was out streaming and stuff. So hopefully, its box office reception shouldn't really matter in the grand scheme of things when it comes to those circumstances. Soul, at the end of the day, it to me is a very successful movie. And I really do think a lot of people should go out and see it for many reasons. The story itself is great, is quite amazing. The journey is awesome, especially between Jamie Foxx's like Joe and 22. There are also characters that actually inhabit New York that make up Joe's like life, and I mean, it's not just that they were there. I mean, it gives you a sense of like what his neighborhood and his like daily life is like, and that's just basically the creative expression that Pixar really needed in a lot of their movies. I mean, like that's what made their movies great, is that they feel human, and yet it just feels like. And yet it doesn't come at you with life lessons. You basically have the freedom to find those yourself, and that's something that's missing. And I'm going to talk more about that towards the end. But also, this was like one of the, from what I understand, this is also one of the first movies that actually featured a black man as the main character. And to me, I find that to be like an outstanding achievement. And it's not just about representation; it's just the fact that it's a fact that like a black man was able to portray, take the reins of a main character and do it well. I mean, like, it's not pandering to like one particular race of people. It's that they celebrated it, very well, and in spite of like what other critics might have said, and we'll get to them as well. because what's in here beyond the representation is a very very well crafted, relatable, and organic story about life. And and you don't necessarily have to agree with all of this, and that's the best part of it. It's just basically you get to enjoy like how one man's life unfolds, but also how that man's life like impacts other lives and becomes impacted by like the circumstances that are shared in this movie. And that's something that I think that needs to be celebrated more often. And quite frankly, I think like if Pixar were to see this video, I hope that they come knowing that I'm not here to bash Pixar. I'm here to basically to celebrate what they used to do and do well. I mean, like they can enter, with movies like these, they can actually like not just appeal to like young children, but they also appeal to adults as well in a PG fashion. The animation is done well. I mean, it's relatable. Like there's basically like you get a sense of like the culture of like the culture of this particular part of New York, and yet it's not overtly about that particular culture. It's about the lives that they live, and it's really cool. I find it to be organic. The side stories are awesome, and at the end of the day, the like the good guy, like Jamie Foxx's character, Joe Gardner, has a complete like transformation in this, and basically I'm just going to leave it at that. So, my recommendation to y'all before I go into spoilers, and then before I go into like my own perspective of like how this affected me, I just want to let you know, this is, if you haven't seen Soul yet, you really should go and pick this up. I picked it up at the library, and it didn't take me very long to watch. It's actually I think like the runtime is like 101 minutes. And yeah, I think it would be a really good, I think it's a worthwhile watch. I'm going to, if I were to score this, I probably am not going to score it. I would just simply say go watch it. It's that good of a movie. I very much appreciated Jamie Foxx's work since his turn as Ray Charles, who was basically the musician I idolize, and I just wanted to like try to like reach his musicality. So kudos to Jamie Foxx for the performance. Tina Fey did a great job as well, and I need to also give a big shout out to Angela Bassett for portraying one of the most important musicians in this movie, and like she plays it very well. I love it. So that's it. Go out and watch it if you haven't yet. But like if you are just here for like my thoughts on the movie itself, thank you for watching. If you like what you saw here, please do like the video, comment on what you enjoyed and what you didn't enjoy. And if you want to see more content like this, please do subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell. All right, thanks a lot, everyone. Hang loose. You're here, so that means like you're interested in the spoilers. So let's go into the spoilers. So Jamie Foxx's character, Joe Gardner, I'll just refer to him as Gardner. No, or Joe. I'll just say Joe. Joe ends up, when Joe meets 22. They both set out to find help. They're both set up to find 22 Spark, which is basically like billed as the purpose of living. So and then by doing so, maybe like Joe can find his way back to his body. So that's what he ends up doing. They go through a lot of different experiences, and then they find. So the first experience that they have together is that they enter a gallery in the Great Before, where like there's a gallery of like stuff that videos and like items that make up Joe's life, the significant moments in his life. So from like eating at at a cafe during the in the middle of the rain in the night, to like his his experiences with his family. The his moment of his spark when he like sees that the musician that inspired him to pick up the piano and get into playing jazz professionally, to eventually when he ends up becoming a music teacher, and from what it appears, he's not very happy with his where he ended up at in life, and he finds this life to be insignificant. So if he's insignificant, then maybe it's the case that he needs to figure out like what he wants in his life, and by doing so, maybe 22 can find her purpose, her spark. And so they eventually like go off on their journey, and they find that, oh well, he's not dead. He's just he just had an accident. He's in a hospital and he's recovering. Okay, well that's cool. And look, there's a therapy cat too, and then unless you've seen the movie, I'm pretty sure that even if you didn't see this movie, you probably could see this coming. The therapy cat and Joe himself. So what ends up happening is that they fall through the portal, where Joe ends up falling into Joe's soul falls into the therapy cat, and then it's 22 who ends up inhabiting Joe's body. So so there's a lot of awkward and confusion, especially when Joe and 22 try to like reason their way out with the with the hospital staff. I actually thought this was kind of funny, and that like okay, so this is what they're talking to themselves, and then but on the outside, like this is what they're hearing instead. So when 22 tries to talk, all they hear is Joe talking, but it's not really Joe. It's just 22. And then like anytime that Joe tries to talk, they just hear a cat meowing, and it's the therapy cat. And it's really funny. I actually thought this was like really funny, and this was such a wonderful moment of levity, and where they're just like, what the heck's going on here? I don't understand. And to be honest, like this is something that I think was really missing in a lot of like in many of like Pixar's like most recent works. Even like with the fantasy elements that were portrayed in other movies, like when you think about it, it's just way too literal, and it's not enough. There's not enough like creativity in just being a good like fantastic movie. So yeah, I find that to be very unfortunate. So, but I'm really glad. So I'm really glad to see that you can still like have fun while you're just like going through this life journey, not life like being not being taught a lesson. You're just going through a life journey, and you get to experience that. That's really awesome. And so during their time inhabiting like different bodies, like 22 ends up like talking to like Connie, I think that's her name, the trombonist. She thinks about quitting, and then they have like an honest conversation, and then Connie finally feels inspired to try out the trombone, and rather than Joe hearing it, 22 ends up like listening to Connie as a performance, and feels really inspired. She actually felt live for the first time, and she doesn't understand how she felt, why she felt that way, but she ended up liking it, and this in turn inspires Connie to just to keep up with the tromboning, and then she says she's going to be back next week to go to keep playing. And I think that's really endearing. It's awesome. Now, and then not only that, but like throughout the movie, they 22 ends up going to the subway, eats and encounters like interesting folks. She ends up finding, and then through Joe's body, she ends up like having her first taste of pizza. Catches a maple seed that fell out of a tree, and and actually like being, and then actually like having, um, like a kind of like reconciled feelings with Joe's mom, which was pretty cool. I like that, and it's through like to Joe's body that 22 ends up like learning her purpose. Like she's trying to figure out like what her purpose is, like what's the spark in her life. And then there's also like, and then in parallel, Joe insists that she only feels this way because she's living inside of another person, and and which happens to be Joe. So eventually, like when like 22 finally feels inspired, she feels that she needs to stay in Joe's body for a little while longer, and then all of a sudden, like Joe in his present like therapy cat form, demands that she give it back to him. And so like by the time like so chase ensues, they end up like getting caught by a Terry, who is basically who are like special beings in the Great Before, who try to maintain the space of the Great Before for incoming souls, and like as well as like souls currently living in there. And then you actually see like and by the time they come back, by the time they come back to the Before, 22's badges. 22 is able to like return to Earth anytime she wants. 20 is allowed to live in Earth because of what's called the badge. So the essentially like the badge is complete, but and she was and she would have loved to have lived, except that Joe ends up like scolding her for stealing his life experiences, and then she ends up throwing the badge in disgust because she now believes she doesn't have a purpose. She only had somebody else's purpose. It wasn't hers, and so she goes away. Joe takes the badge. He's finally able to make it to his gig, his dream gig, and then he finally makes it to his dream gig. Plays, wows the crowd, absolutely wows like Angela Bassett's like saxophonist, and becomes part of the quartet, the quartet that he wanted so badly to be a part of, and so like and so like he, like yeah, everyone was happy and everyone's cheering for him, but the one person who is not happy about it is Joe. Turns out to be Joe. Surprisingly enough, he's not very happy about what happened. But he played a really great, he had a really great night that night. But then, like at the end, he ends up feeling empty. So why does he feel empty? And it's not until like he empties his jacket pocket that contained everything that 22 collected when she was Joe. And the items that were there were like a Metro Rail ticket, a lollipop, the pizza crust from the pizza she had, and then like the spool from the thread that was used, that Joe's mom used to fix up the jacket. And then the one thing that also sparked 22, quote unquote sparked, is actually the maple leaf, the maple seed that fell out of that tree, and Joe finally realizes this, and then he goes, and then he plays the piano, and he's like concentrated, he's back in the zone to try to like save 22. And so there's a lot of fighting. 22 believes that she really has no purpose, so she becomes this lost soul. And then she tries to run away, only to eventually stop when they finally reach the portal that leads them back to Earth. And then it's at that time that Joe basically confesses that he was wrong about like what a spark was the whole time, and it was something from earlier. And I apologize, I didn't really cover the plot all that well, but there's a line in that movie where the spark is not actually what's your purpose in life. it's actually your willingness to live life. Um, so, um, so originally, like initially, like the problem with 22 was that she did not believe that she had a purpose in life. She doesn't even know what to do with this life. So instead, when Joe was assigned to help her find her spark, she it wasn't to like inspire her to live. It was her, what's her? Let me go ahead and rephrase it. It's not that that 22 needed a purpose in life. It's that she just needed the will to live. Yeah. So and that's basically what it came down to. Um, and ultimately she found that thanks to Joe having shared his learned living experiences. So and then what's also important is that she actually experienced that herself with some guidance from Joe. I saw some criticism here that it's basically that it doesn't represent black people well. I have to disagree with that, and that's basically the summation I got from some of these opinions that kind of got resurfaced when I was doing my research after watching the movie. What was basically everyone's how did everyone feel about this movie? Ultimately, it did not recoup its box office, but again, this was just due to the movie having been released on the first year of COVID. In spite of all that, it almost actually recouped its budget, and then actually it apparently had a really great success on Disney, actually. So on Disney Plus. So what's there to glean? I think that this movie was actually I think people actually enjoyed this movie very well. I think the reception was actually quite positive. I mean, there are the outliers who insisted that this movie did nothing to advance black identity, and basically turn them into creatures, into fantastical creatures. But then again, why is that an argument, a valid argument? Why is that a valid criticism? I mean, in the past, I mean, the prince was there were stories where the prince was a frog that had to get kissed by a princess so that the prince can become human again. And it's not as though the frog was desperate to try to come back to human form. Is that he was just looking for a lover. There was a big strong man once upon a time who ended up getting cursed by a witch, and then if true love didn't find him, he would basically be cursed to die as a beast. And unfortunately, and so I don't see the argument. I don't see turning a black man into a creature as a valid criticism for lack of blackness. If anything, this movie was indeed centered around a black man who came from a neighborhood that was predominantly black. The culture was predominantly black. The issues that were shared, the life issues that were shared, were predominantly black culture. And you know what else? It didn't matter that it needed to be relatable. It's just something that it needed to be relatable. It just needed to be told. And it needed to be told from a perspective that from that perspective. That's really all it was. I mean, I'm Vietnamese. I am a Vietnamese man, and I have my own sets of problems. Living in the neighborhood that I live in. But those problems are mine. I mean, I'll share it with them, and then I find that, yeah, I guess in a way they are relatable because I end up relating stories with friends from that are outside of my neighborhood that I consider to be friends. There are, I mean, and this is, to me, that's what this was, is that this is a story that anyone could listen to. And then it's oh my God, that's crazy. It's not that you needed to relate to it. It's just that the story itself was just something you could engage and listen to and just basically learn how people live and go on and stuff. Now, I know I sound like I'm talking out of a circle because the fact is I can only, because right now I'm just basically talking of what's called a stream of consciousness. I mean, what did I learn from this? and even if I didn't learn from anything, did I have fun? Did I actually enjoy watching the movie? Heck yeah, heck yes I did, because because the thing that I took away from movies like this is that the movie was very approachable. It was actually approachable in a way that I could digest the material. I'm not a black culture expert, and I don't think I ever will be. And it's in whether or not I have black friends, and I do have black friends. I actually enjoyed watching the movie because it was, to me, it was entertaining, and not just in a funny haha way. I thoroughly enjoyed like watching and listening to the movie. I mean, and and I'm really glad that there were life lessons that were eventually discovered, and that's essentially but that's what life is about, then, right? You don't just you don't just get told that this is how you choose to live, or as in, well, as in what Joe's mom had said in the movie, you can't feed yourself on dreams, but you can certain. But then the reply back is, I'll never know like what life is like if I never pursued them, though. And it is a valid fear that, like, okay, if you don't stick to like a steady job, how are you going to feed yourself, and how are you supposed to live with yourself, and how, I mean, like, where are you going to be like if you don't have a steady job to like take care of you? And I those I think are issue. Those are I think those are real issues which have been integrated in a way that, like, that any adult can relate to. But it's not beaten over the head. It's just basically, the realities are there, but what are you, the main protagonists, are going to do about it? Do you listen to what people say because you want to feed your life, or do you pursue your dreams, go down the hard road so that you can actually, take the risk, and you do it without regret? I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, that's who. The answer is inconclusive. For me, as the viewer, I just enjoyed watching the movie. I didn't care about DEI or like bridge or any of that nonsense. I didn't care about who are you, where are you from. I just care that you actually are a human being. You have a story to tell. And I actually am very happy that I got to like watch you, live your tale. That's what I loved, and that's what I care about. And it's a fictional story, yeah, sure, but I love that. I love just being able to be entertained. I love being able to in a way, like, connect. In some ways, I actually did connect. I mean, that's what my life is like too. But no practical solutions are offered. It's just simply that, and they didn't need to be. There's no cure for like whatever racism, supremacy, or suppression of thought could cure. In fact, you actually need people to think for themselves. I mean, you may come from a very well-intentioned place, with your lived experiences, but you don't get to impose that on other people. Instead, you give them the opportunity to actually figure this stuff out for themselves. You present your story in a way that doesn't preach to me as I'm at the end of the day someone who spent their time to go see it. And heaven forbid that that movie, I knew that movie was going to get released last year, I would have actually gone out to pay money to see it. I have a tweet there where I was really happy about just watching Good Will Hunting in theaters. It was a great movie. That was a great movie. Didn't require any special effects. It just needed a good human story. And I believe that that's what's missing in today's Pixar and many of these other studios. They're missing out on just being a human being. So rather than telling them that, hey, You need to become transgender. You need to be gay. You need to be non-white. You need to be like non-Asian or whatever. Accept the fact that everyone's human. Just be a human. I think that's. I hate to say it, but I think that's what's been taken away from us. But like in the last few years, and it's really disappointing to me that like as someone who has like seen a lot of his like favorite like pastimes go to become rotted by ideologies, identity politics, and everything else. I don't get a chance to like think for myself or explore these ideas for myself, and it becomes like counterproductive, becomes suppressive, and it becomes a world where I don't want to expose like my future family to. I would want to try to protect them from that world. So anyway, I'm going a little too deep right now, but basically, like this movie really taught me not just about how great this movie is. It taught me about how wonderfully creative people were back in that time, in a time where people could actually like freely express those ideas. Like being able to be fantastical and be like magical, and just basically come out like with a human story wrapped in an animated, like a, like a package. I loved it. I thought this was really endearing to me, and it's a shame that like these days like it's become a rarity. I love Moana. I love Encanto. Mulan was great. So yeah, Hercules was awesome. Lion King, Jungle Book. I would love to go back to the simpler times when Snow White was really just about, it was really about like, like escaping the evil queen, and then finally rescued by Prince Charming. And it's a shame that like like those days have become yesteryear. And when I do finally have a family of my own, not just like extended family of my own, I'm going to do everything I can to show them the beauty and the joy of like the life I lived in, and then also show them what life is like today. Anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and leave it at that. But basically, bottom line is, Soul is a great movie. I really miss the creativity of how Pixar was, not just in terms of like their full feature-length films, but also even the little shorts that they had. I loved Bao. Bao was a great one too. I would probably go see that. Just go ahead and at the library, just find the little Pixar collections, and then you'll find Bao there. It's a great film. I loved it. It was a very good short. Shout out to Domi Shi for sharing that with us, with everyone, all of us. So thank you. All right. That's it for me, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you saw here, please do like the video, comment on what you enjoyed, what you didn't enjoy. And then if you want to see more content like this, please do like the video. And if you want, and then hit that notification bell. Sorry, I kind of had a bit of a brain fart there. But yeah, thanks a lot, everyone. Hang loose.